Not your garden variety mortgage broker. He actually spends time evaluating how you can use the current super competitive interest rates to pay off your mortgage early, purchase a rental property, improve your cash flow, upgrade to your dream home, or even help your kids or grandkids get into a house. That's what loan financial planning is all about. Steve's been helping me and my listeners for over 2 decades, and I can tell you he is the best finance guy in the business. Go to loanfinancialplanner.com. That's loanfinancialplanner.com.
Or call Steve Alladort at 888-563-1070. That's 888-563-1070.
This is Dick from Carpet Masters. Carpet Masters has been serving the Inland Empire for over 55 years. Carpet Masters uses extraction cleaning for your carpet because there's no better cleaning to remove the soil from your carpet. All of our furniture cleaning is done by hand in your home or in our plant. Carpet Masters also offers dry cleaning for fine furniture. Call Carpet Masters at 793-7215. That's 793-7215 for Carpet Masters.
Homelessness, it's not going away, and you can help, make a difference locally, right here.
I'm Mary Winter with the Faces of Yucaipa, a homeless advocacy and services Facebook group. It's easy, nothing is complicated, help as much or as little as you want, but you can help by becoming educated and involved yourself.
It's simple. Check out Faces of Yucaipa on Facebook. Or contact Mary Winter at SamaritanProject4Change@gmail.com. That's the number 4, SamaritanProject4Change@gmail.com.
There's lots of little small things you can do to make a big difference.
Contact us here at kcaaradio.com and we'll help you. You can help others in your local community and right here in the Inland Empire. This message from the KCAA Community Calendar.
Erin here from On the Brink Morning Show, where we talk about all that is engaging in the Inland Empire. News, politics, business, family, things to do, and so much more. Join us weekdays from 6 to 7 a.m. on KCAA 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, and 1050 a.m. or on kcaaradio.com.
KCAA, where every day is a great day.
And now, it's For the People with Judge Herb Dodell.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. I've now listened to the previous 12 shows. They're very good. If you haven't heard them before, now's the time. Anyway, what I want to do is kind of remind you what the show is really all about. The show and the book, neither are really designed to make money. They're really designed to help you, the public, navigate through the system. And I'm going to talk about a very interesting subject today, something that's very practical, probably important in your life at some point.
I hope not.
I don't be considered too cynical, but you'll hear the real story about what goes on behind the scenes today. And part of what we do is give you information. So you're going to get a real look at information today that you can use to evaluate, to choose, to make choices. It's going to be very valuable to you. We also use cases, either when I was practicing full-time as a trial lawyer and I was handling the cases, or in my almost 10 years now on the bench. These stories are being offered not only to entertain you, which they are. Some of them are very entertaining.
Yes, they are.
But the point is they are illustrative of what could happen to you. If it happened to these people in one form or another, there's a possibility you're going to find yourself in the same position. And having heard what happened to somebody else, it may relieve some of your stress and anxiety knowing, okay, that's what happened the last time. I'm going to prepare for that. I'm going to be ready, and therefore I won't be as anxious or stressed. Part of what I want to do with the show and with the book is to relieve your stress and your anxiety for when you don't know. When you don't know something, you're going to be more nervous about it.
Oh, it drives you crazy.
Some people are already there.
Like me.
Well, we talk about that on the side.
Okay, sorry.
The fact of the matter... No, But you have an interesting personality, Gary. I must say that. You know.
What do you mean by that, Judge?
You're you're entertaining. You got the great contagious laugh. I have a great conversation with you before we go on the air. I have to make sure that we're not on the mic. You know?
we can't talk about that stuff?
No, I don't say anything controversial, right?
You don't. You really don't.
No,
I'm the one saying controversial
I do.
stuff.
In fact, in the next couple of weeks, I tried to do it today, but it didn't happen today.
Okay.
We're going to have some very interesting gifts.
Great.
Yes. One guy's running for Congress.
Oh, cool.
And we're going to talk about gun violence and the proposal that I've made on how to try to deal with some of the issues.
By the way, can I ask you a question?
You can ask me whatever questions you want.
60 Minutes. Did you see 60 Minutes?
I did last night.
And you saw that thing about the legislation with how they want to carry concealed weapons throughout the United States.
Yep.
But what's your thinking of that? I think personally, I mean, I know you don't like to get political and all that, and you like to keep it on the even keel, but I'm a little afraid of people coming in from other parts of the country carrying concealed weapons here in Los Angeles.
I think it's a valid concern.
Thank you.
The fact of the matter is I'm a strong advocate that everybody should have the right to have a gun, except those people who shouldn't have a gun. And if we can monitor...
But let me ask you, Judge, doesn't it freak you? I mean, I went to Arizona a couple of years ago, okay? And I was just walking through a park, just hanging out, like at the Parker, Arizona, where the river is and all that. And I'm just walking through the park, hanging out, just enjoying the day. And I see a couple people with guns on their holsters in their belts. And it freaked me out because I'm just not used to that, being here in Southern California, growing up in Los Angeles. I mean, don't you think that would really trip people out here in Los Angeles to see somebody carrying a gun in their belt buckle going into a Starbucks or into a restaurant or into a market or movie or whatever,
Not if you watch the old Roy Rogers movies. Everybody had a gun.
Yeah, but that's the Wild West.
It was the OK
Judge.
Corral.
Yes, this is not the OK Corral.
This started with OK.
It's called the OK Insanity.
Well,
country.
The problem is that too many unstable people have guns. It's not that we as the public should be in any way limited. We shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, some people, you can tell, I'm telling you from the judge's standpoint, I've looked at some people because, we sit up a little bit higher, so you get a chance to kind of look down a little bit.
Of course, you guys always look down on the little man like me.
For us not tall people, it's helpful. And I look at some of these people and I said to myself, these people shouldn't be walking around with anything serious, really. And if we use due process, because that's been the discussion the last couple of days about due process. Due process means before you do anything as a government or as an agency, you have to give the other side an opportunity to be heard. And that's why you have a burden of proof that's higher in restraining order cases than they are in civil cases. There's a reason for all of that. And that's why it has to be on a continuing basis. It's not just a one-shot because you lost your temper one time and you did something. So we have a mechanism to control some of that. And I'm going to talk to this congressional candidate, I think, next week. And then I got a guy. You got the guy is a tax guy.
Okay.
So when the government tells you they're going to take everything that you own and you're concerned about your house and your car and your personal property and all of those kinds of things, what do? How aggressive is the government going to be? You hear all these advertisements on the radio. If you owe more than $10,000, call us and we'll make a deal for you. And they save $300,000 on my. All of that may have some merit to it, depending on your circumstances. So I'm going to have a tax lawyer, as opposed to an accountant. He's an attorney, and all he does is make deals with the government. So he's got a pretty good sense of how this all works. We're going to have him as a guest. I've got somebody lined up to do domestic violence cases. He's a family lawyer, and that's what he deals with because that is really at the front of the news today.
Yes, it is.
And even though I was trained and I'm certified to do those, I have to take tests every 3 years to be recertified, all these things.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, believe it or not, I'm taking the small claims court test today.
Today?
I'm reading through some of it yesterday. I said, I really know most of this, having done it for as long as I have, but I still have to be requalified every 3 years.
Well, I think that's a good thing.
So I think it's a very good thing. I learned some things, actually, that I didn't realize before.
Yeah.
So it's good. So we'll get to the third thing, which is giving people guidelines. And guidelines are, here's how it works. If your facts fit in here, maybe you want to follow it. This is all about giving you tools. The whole thing is about tools. And the fourth part of this is the spiritual tool. Because everything we know operates on the law, the universal law of cause and effect.
Amen.
And we will be able to help you maybe make some good choices along the way that are not necessarily material, but which, if you utilize these tools, can result and would result normally in a positive ending, you know. And so the reality is this show is designed for you. That's why it's called For the People.
With Judge Herb Dodell.
And that's why I did this. You know, truly, if you want to talk about motivation, you know, I wrote the book for the idea that some people would pick it up, and if it was helpful to them, they'd have an answer readily available, as opposed to just going on Google. You can just stick a topic or a name on Google, and it'll give you information, but you need to correlate it. You need to put it all together. So what I did in the book, From the Trench to the Bench, what I did in the book was talk in layman's language. There are no technical terms. Everything that's technical I explain in real understandable English. And that way people get a sense of how they can deal with something that's chaotic in their lives. I'm looking at your wall here. It says, you know, controlled chaos. Well, the bottom line is you can control some of it, and you can turn the chaos of the uncertainty into something positive at the end of the day. So it all starts with lawyers.
Oh, okay. Well, my dad was a lawyer, so God bless you.
Your daughter, your dad was on the right side. He had a really good sense of doing the right thing, which is about justice.
He did.
To me, the whole system should be about justice. When you see some of the results and you say to yourself, how could that possibly be? That doesn't sound like justice to me, and it's true. So we'll talk about how to pick a lawyer right after the break.
It is From the Trench to the Bench. Excuse me. It's For the People with Judge Herb Dodell. The book, From the Trench to the Bench, is available at Amazon.com. Great read, Judge.
And it's an easy read.
It's an easy read, too. All right, we'll be back with Judge Herb Dodell right after these important messages.
1050 AM, KCAA.
Herb Dodell is a lawyer and a judge for the people. Having served as a Superior Court judge, presiding over more than 9,000 cases, he has witnessed firsthand how complicated and corrupt the legal system can be. His goal is to show how things really work in the legal system so that people can navigate the legal system in the best way for them. Many people often feel marginalized by the legal system and are uninformed about how to proceed when unfortunate circumstances arise in their life. Judge Herb will pull back the curtain, lift the veil, so people can truly understand their rights, have access to top legal personnel that they can trust, and have knowledge about how things work so they can make better choices. Judge Herb isn't just knowledgeable. His integrity and spiritual values are truly what make him different. He cares about democratizing access and information for all and desires to turn on the light so the people, you, can benefit. For more information, email the judge at askjudgeherb@gmail.com. That's askjudgeherb@gmail.com.
Okay, welcome back. Now we're going to talk about picking a lawyer. Do you need a lawyer for everything? Probably not. I'm going to try to distinguish between the times when you do and the times when you don't. Obviously, there are cost considerations. There's the emotional considerations and everything else. Now, we are very favorable towards small claims court. And as I was going through the material last night to take my test, I saw some of the things that I hadn't really thought about before that we can do in small claims court. There's a lot of conduct other than just awarding money, like specific performance. You can force other parties to do things. For example, I had a case where there were issues concerning the sale of a timeshare. And the lady bought a timeshare in Mexico. And she had previously bought 2 more of those timeshares, so she knew the business. She knew exactly what she was getting into. And they made a promise to her that they were going to rent her unit out. And so she would ultimately be paying nothing. And she was going to trade something. The details don't really matter that much. But they didn't go through with the deal with her, and she wanted basically to get her money back. So I ultimately decided that I was going to rescind the contract. Rescission means you go back to the beginning. That's the term, rescission. But usually both sides have to give back to the other what was the consideration for the agreement to begin with. Remember, we talked about consideration last week. That's what one party does for the other or doesn't do for the other in exchange for mutual responses from the other side. And I ultimately decided that even though the documents didn't mention it, I was satisfied with her testimony and her notes and some of the emails that they had represented this to her and didn't go forward with it. So what I did was I ordered the timeshare company, I forgot their name, I wouldn't mention it anyway on the radio, to give her back her money, in exchange for which she had to give them back the documents. I asked if there was a deed. There was no deed involved. It was just merely an executory contract. So I said, okay, I'm going to put this over for a month. I want you to tender whatever documents they need so that they get their property back. And they've got
tender
to pay
means
you.
what does tender mean?
Tender means give it back to
Okay, tender. Okay.
So you give them the documents that they need, because you can write them a letter, and you tell them that you're getting a judgment, and they have to give you the money back, but you have to comply with your responsibilities, which is giving them back what they needed. And that's called a rescission. So basically the parties go back to square one. She got her money back, and they got their property, not necessarily a title, but they got whatever it is that they needed to sell the unit to somebody else. And so I'm realizing how much opportunity there is for the public to use small claims court, as long as it's under $10,000 for individuals, $5,000 for corporates or entities. And we don't have to bother getting into the frequent filers, because those are the people who are there all the time. But for $10,000, do you need a lawyer?
No.
That's not necessarily true.
Okay, well,
you can't have a lawyer in the courtroom.
I mean, you can ask lawyers for advice, I guess.
That's the point.
Okay.
Because there are so many technicalities and the public doesn't know what remedies are available to them, even though there are, and we have it in Ventura, there are small claims court advisors as well as the mediator up there who's checking to see whether or not he's able to come on the show. You need to know what some of the legal concepts are, because if you didn't know what rescission was, and you didn't know what reformation was, which is reforming a contract, changing the terms because the parties have made a mistake, or a specific performance requiring somebody to give something back, if you didn't know those remedies existed and you go in there, you're unprepared. And if the other side is prepared with objections to what you have, you might not get anywhere. So it pays sometimes, to the extent you don't get that legal advice from the advisors, it makes sense to contact a lawyer, ask him or her what you should do. Now, what's going on right now, it's been going on, I guess, for a couple of years now, I think I mentioned it during one of the other shows, are personal injury cases. Personal injury cases, if they're strictly what they call soft tissue, meaning sprains and strains, and there's no damage neurologically or orthopedically, those cases have a limited value. Usually the person in the accident, after they talk to the lawyer, the case gets better, of course. And they start getting sent to various places to get reports that they're sick, sore, lame, and disabled.
Massage parlors?
You know what? That's probably recoverable without the happy ending.
Oh, well, how do you know?
Well, I don't know. But they seem to be happy, you know. and a lot of these PI cases
for an extra 20.
Is that how it works?
I don't know, Judge. I've never been in one of those. Come on.
You know, I was saying something to my wife the other day. I said, I've never been in one of these gentlemen's clubs. I drive by them all the time. I've never been in one of those. She says, you ought to go one time. I said, what am I going to do there? You know, she says, you go.
Throw away your money. Throw away your money.
Hey,
That's what you're going to do.
You roll up that dollar bill or whatever you did. So I guess it's not a dollar.
No, not anymore.
Whatever it is. But if you have a soft tissue injury case, there might be some defenses for the other side that you might not anticipate.
Right.
And you may want to be able to bring in evidence that you have that you think is helpful for you, but you don't know how to do it. Now, the rules in small claims court are pretty much, we don't consider the real technicalities of evidence, but we do sure consider the technical rules of law. If something's barred by the statute of limitations, the rest of it doesn't make much difference. And so there are things that you have to be aware of, and you could get trapped or caught. Better be prepared, know how to do it. The book goes through great detail on how to handle small claims court cases. That was one of the reasons I did it, was to make sure that anybody who was going to be in that forum would at least have a sense of where you stand, what do you do, what do you say. So even though hearsay is admissible in small claims court, normally not,
right?
Although it's admissible in restraining order cases, which is kind of interesting. I've had this discussion with one of the judges in the restraining order group. She doesn't let any hearsay in. I said, but there's a case, the Kaiser case, Kaiser versus Wilson, says you have to consider hearsay. You don't have to give much weight, but you have to consider it. It's the same thing in small claims court. You need to know what's admissible and what's not. Some people think because a doctor writes a letter that the court's going to consider that letter.
Right.
Well, in small claims court, we will, as long as you show it to the other side in advance. And since there's no discovery, you really don't know what the other side's going to do. There's no formal discovery in small claims court, although you can issue subpoenas. But generally, you can't take depositions and you can't send interrogatories. You can't.
Oh, really? You can't. So somebody,
No.
you can't depose anybody in
No.
small claims.
No.
Okay,
But
that's interesting.
getting back to the question of whether you need a lawyer or not, it might be a good idea if you got a $10,000 case to talk to a lawyer, spend a half an hour, pay for the consultation, and so you're much better prepared than you would otherwise be. But what's going on right now with the PI cases, PI being personal injury cases, is that the lawyer really doesn't do very much. And simple, I'm talking about simple cases. I'm not talking about cases where there are real injuries. The general soft tissue injury cases, the patient goes to the chiropractor for about 3 months, gets a bill about $3,000, $3,500. They all read pretty much the same. You know, they do measurements and then they come up with strain and sprain and massage,
right,
or physiotherapy. You know, legitimate ways to deal with it. A lot of times, what the PI lawyers are recommending now, I'm seeing it more and more, is epidurals. People who have back injuries.
Those are painful.
Claiming that they have back injuries.
Yeah.
Well, if you get an epidural, now the doctor puts in a note in the record that they took an epidural and
More
it's painful.
money.
More money.
More money. That's all it's about.
I know
Let's be
for an
honest.
absolute fact that some guy has taken 2 epidurals. There's no reason for any of it except
Please.
looking to run up the bill.
Exactly.
And that runs up the bill for everybody.
Yeah.
And the insurance companies know that. And so they don't pay. And so you end up with a personal injury case that you have for yourself. And if it's under $10,000, which is what most of these are, you're there by yourself. Sometimes the lawyers will go and they'll sit in the back. I recognize some of them for seeing them on a frequent basis. Sometimes they'll send a paralegal to sit back there, you know, kind of moral support. And sometimes the insurance company sends somebody and they try to participate, which I don't let them do, unless they took the actual pictures of the scene or something like that. But small claims court is a vehicle, and do you need a lawyer? You don't need a lawyer in court unless it's in an appeal. Remember, plaintiffs do not have a right of appeal. You lose in small claims court as a plaintiff, you are done, with the exception of making what they call a reconsideration type motion afterwards. We've talked about that on the show before. I don't think they've ever granted one, and I've seen lots of them. It's an effort by plaintiffs to skirt the rule against appeals for plaintiffs. This is another shot. They want the judge to take another look at the case. Unless something really significant has happened, which was unavailable before, they don't get a second bite. That's just the way the system operates.
Isn't it good to have a lawyer, though, to consult? I mean, like when I actually got rear-ended a few years back, and I hurt my back. I hurt my back. It was on the freeway, 405 freeway. And I, spoke to my lawyer, who's a friend of mine, and he recommended a doctor to me. And basically, that's how it went down. I mean, he was the one who spoke to the insurance company. He's the one who settled out of court. I didn't have to go to small claims court. It was only for like $2,000. I mean, I got $2,000 out of it and my bumper. But I mean, it's good to consult with one before you go through the whole legal system.
I think that's true. But what happens is the lawyer can't be in small claims court, so they bail out.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying to consult with them is a good thing.
I think it's a good idea.
It's a good idea, right?
Yeah. But now let's take it to the next step, the more serious. Now you got business cases and you got injury cases. One's a contract, usually the other's a tort. We talked about that last week.
Right.
Now, in a contract case, you're either the plaintiff or the defendant. Putting aside for the moment you could be a cross-defendant or a cross-complainant, but just generally a dispute over a breach of contract, you definitely need a lawyer. It starts with something called a complaint. You're a layperson. You're going to go to the form book and get one out and try to modify it. I guess you could do that. And maybe you can get by some attacks on it. Maybe you can fix it or maybe you can't. Not a great idea. If you're a plaintiff and you're trying to collect from a defendant and you don't have any money or any real money, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
Unless you can get a lawyer on what's called a contingency fee basis. We'll talk about the difference between hourly, contingency, and hybrids. Not the car. Hybrids after the break.
All right. It's for the people. Judge Herb Dodell. Get his book, From the Trench to the Bench. Now.
Hey, call me if you got any. Get in touch with me if you have any questions. It's askjudgeherb@gmail.com. I'll try to respond. I don't give legal advice. This is all to help you use the tools that are already out there.
Beautiful. We'll be back right after this.
NBC Talk Radio, 1050 AM, KCAA.
In his book, From the Trench to the Bench, Judge Herb Dodell demystifies the legal system, including both civil and criminal, the lawyers, the judges, and the process. As a judge, former deputy district attorney, and criminal defense attorney, he knows the legal system. He has the inside information that you need to pick a lawyer, and he's here to give it to you. No matter what you're facing that makes you think you may need a lawyer, Judge Herb will shed valuable light on your situation and reveal your best options and many secrets of how the judicial system actually works. To find out more about how the legal system really works, you can get your copy of Judge Herb Dodell's eye-opening book, From the Trench to the Bench, at Amazon.com.
Okay, welcome back. So we're going to talk about the two different types of cases. And keep in mind, these are general comments. And because I'm practicing in California and I'm licensed in California and New York, I kind of just talk about those jurisdictions, cases, and authorities. So if you're in someplace else, you need to check it out. Go online, talk to a lawyer, and make sure that the rules in your jurisdiction are the same as the ones that I'm talking about here in California. Now, you've got a business case. The question is, can you afford it? The first thing you need to do after you take a deep breath when you realize you got to be in a lawsuit is say, okay, how do I find a lawyer? Where are they? You can see on the back of the bus there's an advertisement. There's somebody in a bus stop. There's these big billboards that say how much money they're going to get for you, all puffing it up. But the reality is it's an expensive proposition. It could drive you out of business. It could drive you into bankruptcy because you can't afford it, or you get started and the other side runs up the bill, which is what they do. They run it up, and run it up some more. So pretty soon you're going to run out. When you run out, if you're an individual, you can continue on by yourself. Not a great idea. But if you're a corporation or another entity, you cannot. And if you cannot get or afford a lawyer, your case is going to be over. It's going to be dismissed. And you could end up having to pay the costs of the other side because they will have prevailed. Even if there's an agreement that you have for a prevailing party to get attorney's fees, if you default and the case is dismissed, you're going to get stuck because the other side becomes the prevailing party. So how do you pick a lawyer? Well, a lot of it is visible. It's your gut feeling. What about the people who advertise on the billboards and everything else? I don't know enough about some of those people. Some of them are probably pretty good, but some of them are not. And they're just advertising to get you in the door. So for personal injury cases, generally, and I'm not going to digress too much from the business cases, generally what happens is you maybe you meet the partner once, and then the next thing you're going to be doing is talking to the paralegal or the person who keeps the records. They make doctor's appointments for you. They get the records. They make sure that the reports are on time. They talk to the insurance company adjuster. They work with you on getting the car fixed. But you're not going to see that lawyer probably at all. At the end of the day, the lawyer picks up the phone and talks to the adjuster, and they try to work it out because everybody recognizes that the cost sometimes exceeds the value. And in a personal injury case, and it's a contingency, don't expect to be talking to that lawyer very often because it's a percentage. Meaning whatever time that lawyer puts in, he or she, they're not getting paid for it. So they're not going to be too accessible to you if you start making calls on a regular basis. You may not answer your call. You'll get another call from somebody in the office maybe. But these kinds of operations, which we refer to as mills, M-I-L-L-S, it's all numbers. And who's going to do the grunt work, for want of a better word, because that's what it is. It's all paper, correspondence, and things of that nature. Business cases are a lot different because they're usually on an hourly fee basis. So before you hire somebody, you want to know, who are they? You want to know what their reputation is. I don't know if they have a Yelp for lawyers. I suppose they do. But
really?
They probably do.
Wow.
Well, there's all these ratings. You see, the number one lawyer in California. Well, you can be the number one lawyer in California. All you have to do is send them $100 and they send you a certificate.
Larry Parker.
I'm not going to comment about that. But if you look at the ads, if you watch television, if you're a late night person.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to see all these lawyers coming up there talking about various things. Did you have this done? If you did, you may be entitled to compensation. You may not. And they go on and on and on.
Such
but if
a
you read
joke.
but if you read the little print, it's some guy or gal in Wyoming.
It's a joke.
They don't have anything to do with you. But the next thing you know, you will be hearing from somebody local because if you call them, it's a quick referral. And the way it works in the real world is that the lawyer who gets the case pays the lawyer that referred the case. I mean, there are state bar rules. It used to be prohibited. It's not prohibited anymore as long as there's some prerequisites that are met. But generally speaking, that's the way it works. They pay for the advertising. They get all the calls, and they farm it out to whatever jurisdiction it's in, to the group that's part of their network. That's how that works. But on hourlies, it's different. I tell this story all the time because it bothered me at the time. I was a kind of a consultant to a big company. They were doing pretty good. He had $32 million offshore. I remember that number really well because he was well heeled. And then the government started to chase after him for some things, and there was a class action filed against him. And he said, would I help him out and go to a meeting at one of these law firms? Because he needed to hire somebody. Obviously needed to hire somebody. So it was like on a Sunday. And I drove down to this law office, and it was a national law firm. I'm not going to mention their name. But they had 2,000 lawyers nationwide. This was a big, highly recognized, big name, political. One of the partners was a real politician. You know, it was one of those.
Nixon and Sons.
So I show up at this fancy office, you know, and that's the first clue, by the way. When you walk into an office and they've got originals hanging on the wall, you know who's going to be paying for all of that? You.
Right.
And so the way it works is the partners farm out the work to the associates. Now, the associates can be a year out of law school. Years ago, I was shocked to find that brand new lawyers from good law schools were getting about $160,000 a year to start. No experience at all, none. And were they any good? They probably were good intellectually. They took the bar and they knew all the academics, but they didn't know what to do in the real world when they're out there. So I go down to this meeting on a Sunday, and I walk in with my buddy, not so much my buddy, this guy that I knew fairly well, was involved with his business. He and I walk in, and there's 5 lawyers sitting around this enormous table, all with their suit and ties on, you know, on a Sunday.
Did you have a suit and tie on?
Probably not.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Probably not. Bottom line was, I asked the first guy, I said, what do you do in this on these kind of cases? Oh, I'm a corporate compliance person. Oh, okay. Asked the second person, what do you do? Oh, I do this. And the third person, I do that. There were 5 people there, all going to work on his case. He didn't need 5 people. He could have done with one good quality person and some help.
Yeah.
You know, some assistance in terms of the paperwork and things of that nature. That's all he really needed. They were going to charge him 5 times. And what they do is they pay the associates minimal amounts of money. Right? Even though $160,000 is not exactly a minimal amount, but they chain him to the desk for that. Oh. They've got to put in 2,200 hours a year or they don't get to the second year. So they got to find work.
Right.
And they'll make work. And they'll look at issues that are really so remote that it's not worth even pursuing, but they're going to pursue it. And I said to this guy as we were leaving, I said, they're going to hose you. You get ready for the you're going to see bills every month that are going to shock you because they know how much money you got. And they're going to run that sucker up until it's bled dry. And that's exactly what they did. He hired him. And that's exactly what they did. And frankly, I looked at some of the work that they did. I thought it was less than quality in my mind.
Really?
Less. I looked at it and look, I was never the greatest of intellectual pursuit people. And I looked at it and read it and I said, this is poor. This is amateur. But that's what they were doing. And they were billing the hell out of it. And that's what happens. So when you go to these offices, look and see what's on the wall, and if they're on the 50th floor, looking out over the mountains, and whatever. Remember, you're going to be paying for part of that, and remember that these people who are working for you are not going to be necessarily experienced. So ask them, what kind of experience have you had? How many times have you tried a case? Have you even second chair, which means you're the assistant in the trial? And most of them don't have any experience. And then you say, well, how much are you getting paid? Oh, I get $3.75 an hour. Okay. And you know they're probably getting maybe $75 an hour from the partners or from the firm. And they bill and some more. I call it the mantra. It's called billable hours. So ask them, what do they do? And what do they plan to do? Lawyers will hate this, what I'm about to say.
Don't tell us.
They'll hate it. How about we did the drum roll last week. There you go, the sound effects. They're going to not like this. I would ask the lawyer to give you an explanation of what they plan to do, what they think they need to do, why they need to do it, and what it's going to cost you to get there. I use the example in the book of something called a demurrer. The demurrer is the technical term. What it means is that if a complaint is filed against you and you're the defendant and your lawyer looks at the complaint and sees there's a deficiency of some kind, whether it's unexplainable, ambiguous, whatever it may be, you can file what's called a demurrer. A demurrer attacks the complaint. It says it's inefficient and it can't fly. There are problems with it, so you don't get to litigate it. So the demurrer attacks the complaint. If the demurrer is sustained, which means the court agrees with your objections or your comments, they have to fix it, or sometimes it's not fixable. For example, the statute of limitations, it's done. You can't fix it. And so the demurrer in that case, to the extent that it's obvious from the face of the complaint, you can't go behind the face of the complaint, and all the allegations of the complaint are deemed to be true for purpose of this motion. So even if you make outrageous statements in that complaint, it's okay to get past the demurrer. So what's the benefit of a demurrer? Well, if you get it sustained without leave to amend, case is over. Generally what the courts will do, at least the first time out, most of the time, is they'll let you amend it. So you fix it. Oh, I left out that one? Oh, I'll fix that up. What did you just do? You just spent a whole bunch of money attacking a complaint. They're going to amend it. They're going to fix it. And you're going to be in worse shape because now you've called their attention to the mistake instead of sitting around to the end and at the day of trial coming in and making a motion to get the case dismissed. So I'm not in favor of demurrers most of the time. They're used for stalling reasons, and more important, they're used by lawyers to run up the bill.
Nice.
It really is. I told the story in one of the sessions that we had about the lawyer that died. He's 36 years old. He goes up to the pearly gates and he sees St. Peter there standing by the gate. And he says, look, I shouldn't be here. I'm 36 years old. St. Peter says, no, not according to your billing records. So they will find ways. So you ask them, you want to do a demurrer, why, assuming that the case has been filed already as opposed to going to be filed.
Ask them questions.
Ask lots of questions.
Yes.
Lots. And if you have a contingency situation, and there are some cases that are business cases that are contingencies, also when you're the plaintiff, you want to know, are they going to be there to write the checks when you need to? We're going to talk about the need for that right after the break.
All right, it's Judge Herb Riddell. For the People, get his book From the Trench to the Bench, now on Amazon. We'll be back after this.
NBC Talk Radio, 1050 AM, KCAA.
Did you ever meet a lawyer that was for the people? Someone who had the best interests of the people at heart? Herb Dodell has been a lawyer for more than 50 years and has been a Superior Court judge for 9 years, having presided over more than 9,000 cases. In this show, he will reveal the secrets of how things really work in the legal system, so you can maximize your position and benefit most when you're in trouble and need someone on your side to simplify the process for you. For more information, email the judge at askjudgeherb@gmail.com. That's askjudgeherb@gmail.com.
Okay, we're back. So what happens is you start getting bills, and they get more and more and more, and you don't know what's going on. When you get that bill, call them up. On a contingency, insist on talking to the person who's in charge of all the billing. Insist on it. And as far as the things that they're being charged, what they're charging you for, you want to know what it's for. What is this, and why are we doing it? They're not going to like to have to put this in writing. They definitely will not like to do it, but you should make sure that you get an explanation of everything. Now, you will see on your bill costs. It'll have things on there which you may not recognize. Ask them what it's for. You may have lunch at the Hawaiian Gardens. Well, you want to know why are you being charged for lunch at the Hawaiian Gardens? Oh, well, I had dinner with the adjuster, or had lunch with the adjuster. Well, maybe. That's in a tort type cases where you have an adjuster. In a contract case, you'll see trips on there. You say to yourself, well, why did you need to go to St. Louis? Couldn't you have done it on the videotape or Skype or something like that? Well, there are ways to do that. And when you're struggling to stay in the game, you want to save all the money you can. And you want that money to be spent wisely. And so you ask lots of questions.
Judge, can let's say give this case to a lawyer and you go, how much is it going to be? And they say $50,000. And then they go over like $100,000. Is there any way to recoup that money, the extra $50,000, or is there any way to write in the contract, hey, I can pay $50,000, but I can't pay any more than that? Is there any way to do that?
Yes. By the way, under California law, all these retainer agreements are negotiable. All the fees are negotiable. Okay. And so when you get that retainer agreement or engagement letter in the mail, or they give it to you, read it carefully. Most people think, well, I'm here, I'm going to hire that person, I like them, and I'll sign right here, and don't read it. Well, you know what? Not reading it doesn't help you. It's going to be binding on you whether you read it or you didn't. Now, if you read it and you've got a question, make sure you ask. And it's a better idea to ask in some form of writing, an email later in the day. I read the retainer agreement. There's a paragraph that says this, that, and the other thing. What does that mean? Let them write it back to you as to what that paragraph means. So later on, they can't argue, oh, it meant such and such, and it was clear, and I explained it to them. You don't want that. You want to know, you want to limit your amount of exposure. You could, just as you said, Gary, you can say, I only have $25,000. Am I going to be able to do it for that amount of money? If they tell you, yeah, we'll do that, we'll put it in the agreement. That the maximum amount I'm going to pay is X dollars, and then it converts to a contingency. Well, which doesn't necessarily work when you're a defendant because there is no contingency. What happens with defendants is they run out of money too. The big-time New York Stock Exchange companies will go after them, and they'll run up the bill by making them spend money. They want you to spend money. Not only are they putting money in their own pocket for the stuff that they're doing, they want to make it as uncomfortable as they can for you. And sooner or later, you don't survive it, or you can't afford it, or your lawyer bails out on you, or whatever it is, you're in trouble. You spent all this money, you got nothing for it. In fact, you could even lose because they'll only make a certain motion called summary judgment motion, and you may be out the door with nobody representing you. That's exactly what could happen. So if you want to put a limit on what your exposure is going to be, put it in the agreement. And you can say you will agree not to withdraw, and you agree that you will defer future payments. There are lots of ways to do that. Most lawyers will not agree to it. And then you have a choice. Either stay there and negotiate the best you can, or head out the door and try to find somebody else. There's always somebody else out there. The better the case you have, the more leverage you have. Believe it or not, even a personal injury case, a really good one, the normal range is between 25 and 50%. That's the normal range. If you've got a real dead bang winner, God forbid you had a loss of a limb or permanent neurological, whatever it may be, that law firm is going to negotiate with you because they don't want you going down the street. Now, the normal fee is 33 1/3% if you don't have a lawsuit filed. And then it increases to 40% if you do. That's the general standard. You say, you know what? I got such a great case. You're not going to need to do very much to get there, and it's a 6 or 7 figure case. I want to pay 25%. I'm not willing to pay 33 1/3 or 40%. They're either going to let you walk, or they're going to negotiate with you, or they're going to try to figure out some way to do what's called a hybrid. Now, the hybrid is the third way. There's the hourly rate, and that's negotiable, and you certainly want to know that going in. And you want to know, why is that lawyer telling you they're getting $600 an hour when they got out of school 6 months ago? I mean, you want to know who you're dealing with, and are they really worth it? And people ask me all the time, should we go with the big firms or the medium-sized firms or the sole practitioners? I'm not a big firm fan. I mean, I've seen so much abuse over the years. When they have clients that are big corporations, they bury it. Nobody knows that they're charging for stuff they're not doing. They'll add stuff and whatever it is. I don't think you get the best bang for the buck with the big firms unless you're getting a senior partner and it's such a special case and you need somebody with that particular type of experience and background. You're paying for the stuff on the wall and the view. And, oh, would you like a latte? You know, come on in.
Trips to Maui.
And then they parade a bunch of people in just to say hello to you so you feel that it's very important and impressed. But you tend to get lost in the crowd as long as you're not paying. You will be lost in the crowd.
Yeah.
My preference has always been to go with the smaller boutique firms because there you get personal attention. The person that you meet, and you want to know, by the way, when you're interviewing in the big firms or whatever, you want to know who is the lawyer that's going to be actually handling your case. You want to meet that particular person. If it's going to be John Smith, you want John in that room. You want to talk to him. If it's Mary, you want to talk to her. You want to see how they feel. You want to get a visceral sense. Do you like them? Is there a good energy? Believe it or not, there is an energy. When you sit across from the table from somebody, you get a feeling. You like them, you don't like them, or they're being brusque, or they're trying to get you out of there too fast. Whatever it is, it has to be a visceral feeling of what you like or what you don't like about that particular person. Now, in the boutique firms, you're going to meet the person who's really going to do your case. And the only issue you have there, I shouldn't say the only issue, the only major issue, is do they have the financing? See, the big firms, on a contingency case, they can afford it. The big guys, if they got to spend $50,000 for a forensic accountant, they got it. Or they've got an arrangement. For the medium-sized firm, the boutique firms, coming up with $50,000 at a shot, plus paying for the people who are working on it, may not be doable. If that's the case, wrong firm. You need to know that they will be there to hire the best people because most cases are decided on the testimony of expert witnesses, yours and theirs. And believe me, the big guys, they can bring in the really expensive ones and run that bill up with regard to your having to get somebody to counteract it. And that's how it works. It's a battle of the fittest. Actually, it's the who's going to survive longer. And you hear the expression all the time. Oh, it's settled on the courthouse steps. Why did that happen? Why does that happen? The really simple reason for it. Very, very simple reason for it. For the defense, they settle on the courthouse steps because they can't afford to lose. They've milked it as far as they could get it. I don't mean to be overly cynical, and that doesn't apply to all firms. It applies to some. Not everybody is as dishonest as some of them are. And you say to yourself, why are you sitting on the courthouse steps? Because they figured they've milked it as far as they're going to get it, except for the trial. And I've settled them in the middle of a trial. I settled one for $2 million when I said to the judge, let's get the 12 jurors up here. As soon as that happened, the other said, let me make a call. And we settled it for $2 million.
Wow.
Great clients, by the way, really nice people. I've settled them in the middle of deliberations. They've run it up as far as they're going to get it. And if they lose, the client, the defendant client generally, is going to say, what happened here? Why did we go all the way to the end with this thing?
Yeah.
If this thing was as stiff as it was, why didn't we get out of this thing in the beginning? It's never cheaper than in the very beginning. And I've always used that as a technique to talk to opposition. So, it's never going to be cheaper than it is today. Never. Because next week we're going to be doing this, and the following week we're going to be doing that, and you're going to do this, and I've been in there so many times, I know exactly what you're going to do. And I know exactly what it's going to cost. And you're running it up because you think you're going to make some money on it. But remember, there's a prevailing party provision in here, meaning if you lose, you pay my fees too. So at the courthouse steps, they pay because it eliminates the risk. The client's now out of it. They're now told, it developed badly. We thought it was going to go this way. And they can't afford to lose. And I did say this, I think, during one of our shows because I remember it so vividly. This one guy, the guy that told me he billed 26 hours in one day, that same guy, he had one big insurance company. We're talking a serious sized insurance company. He had a couple of hundred lawyers working for him. And we were socially friendly, so he was always candid with me. He's gone now, so I can tell the story. And he says if he loses that client, he's a garage.
Wow.
He couldn't. That client was supporting him because he was making all those dollars on all the associates that he had working on there doing file review. You see file review, 6 hours, file review. Oh, really? What did you do? Well, I looked at the file.
For 6 hours.
For 6 hours. And it's really a blind item.
Yeah.
Because you as a lay member have no real clue as to what they're doing. Oh, I had a theory that made no sense, but I had a theory and we needed to research it. And there was no law in California, so we had to go to the library to review the law in Missouri. And unless you ask, you are never going to know. In fact, there are firms that are out there now, I'm told, I haven't seen any, but I'm told that some of the insurance companies are hiring to go over the bills that they're getting from the lawyers that are handling the cases because they know they're getting hosed.
Right.
And so they hire somebody to go out there and say, wait a minute, you did what you did really was cut and paste. You know what cut and paste is?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you take an old complaint or an old answer or an old motion, and you take out the names, you put in the different names, you massage it, takes you half an hour, and you bill as though you were writing it as a beginning planning.
Yeah,
it takes 8 hours to write that kind of complaint. Well, it took them 20 minutes.
That long?
Sometimes less. And it's done by the paralegals.
Yeah.
So, look, it's a difficult system. If you're in it, take a deep breath, recognize what's going to happen to you, and ask lots and lots of questions and act on your gut feeling and reputation. Get a lawyer by reputation, and personal recommendations are the best. Don't rely on websites and fancy ads and social media to pick a lawyer. Too important. Next week, we'll talk about something else.
Cool. All right. It's Judge Herb Dodell. It's for the people. If you want to ask a judge a question, it's askjudgeherb@gmail.com and get his book, From the Trench to the Bench, on Amazon.com.
The rest of it is navigating the legal system and finding your spiritual path along the way.
I need to find my spiritual path, Judge.
Cause and effect, the mirror above.
Oh, my God. The mirror on the wall is broken.
That's right. Do good things will happen to you.
I do. It doesn't work. All right.
Yes, it does.
Right. Take care, Judge.
See you next week.
So, you want to be in show business. Do people tell you that you're really funny, you have a great personality, and you should have your own talk show? Many of us have been told that, but we don't know how to get started. It's easier than you think. Let the pros at Cali Vegas give you a free talent evaluation. Call 949-445-1119 and learn how quickly you can create, produce, and host your very own talk show. Imagine not having to sit in traffic every day, commuting back and forth to the same old boring job. Get started in television or radio today with your free talent evaluation from Cali Vegas. Call 949-445-1119 or visit them online at calivegas.com.